The dangerous mission. Captain Lucas Hayes sat alone in the dim cockpit of his ship, reviewing the mission details on his screen. He'd been on countless missions, but this one was different. His orders were simple but risky. Protect Princess Alara, an alien princess from the Zyrinth, and escort her safely to peace talks with the Varric, a hostile alien species that had been terrorizing the galaxy for years. If these talks succeeded, they could end the long-standing war. But if they failed, the galaxy could plunge into chaos. Lucas didn't know much about the Zyrinth, only that they were a mysterious race, known for their high technology and almost mythical wisdom. The Varric, on the other hand, were well known and feared. They had attacked human colonies and were responsible for countless deaths. Lucas had no sympathy for them and doubted the talks would even work. He wasn't thrilled about babysitting a royal alien, either. He figured Princess Alara would be like other royals he'd met, cold, aloof, and out of touch with reality. But orders were orders, and Lucas always followed orders. As he neared the Zyrinth royal ship where Alara waited, he took a deep breath. His thoughts were interrupted by a message from his commander. "Captain Hayes, be careful. The Varric are on high alert. They don't want these peace talks to happen, and they'll do anything to stop them." Lucas clenched his jaw. He didn't need a reminder about the danger. Escort missions were always tricky, especially when they involved a high-profile target. He prepared to dock with the Zyrinth ship, checking his weapons and shields. The doors slid open, and Princess Alara stepped into his ship. Lucas was taken aback. She looked different from what he'd imagined. She wasn't wearing a heavy royal robe or any fancy jewelry. Instead, she was dressed in simple, practical clothes, her silver-blue skin glowing faintly in the ship's light. Her eyes, a deep shade of purple, were sharp and observant. She didn't look like someone who'd be afraid of danger. "Captain Hayes," she asked, her voice calm but curious. "Thank you for taking on this mission. I know it's dangerous." Lucas nodded, still trying to size her up. "Just doing my job, Princess. Are you ready for the journey?" She smiled, a small, knowing smile. "Please, call me Alara. I'm ready. I've been waiting for this chance for a long time." Lucas raised an eyebrow. She didn't sound like a sheltered princess. "You don't seem nervous," he said, surprised by her confidence. "There's no time for nerves," Alara replied. "The Varric have hurt both our people. If I have to risk my life to bring peace, then so be it." Lucas was silent for a moment, watching her. Maybe this mission wasn't going to be as straightforward as he'd thought. He still didn't trust the Zyrinth or the chances of peace with the Varric, but something about Alara made him think she was different. She wasn't just a princess. She was a warrior in her own way. He steered the ship away from the Zyrinth vessel and set course for their destination. "All right, Alara," he said, feeling a spark of respect for her. "Let's hope we both make it through this." As they drifted into the dark void of space, Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was about to change everything, maybe even himself. An unexpected connection. As Lucas guided the ship through space, he kept glancing at Alara, who sat across from him, studying the stars. He tried to stay focused on the mission, but her calm presence and quiet confidence intrigued him. She wasn't like any royal he'd ever met. Instead of acting like she was above everyone else, Alara seemed thoughtful and observant, almost curious about him too. Alara noticed him looking and turned to face him. "Captain, do you ever wonder if peace is truly possible with enemies like the Varric?" Lucas scoffed slightly. "I've fought the Varric before, Princess. I've seen what they can do to innocent people. I don't think they care about peace." She tilted her head, studying him with those deep purple eyes that seemed to see through him. "Maybe not all Varric are the same. We can't assume that they all follow the same path. Isn't that worth exploring?" Lucas shrugged. "Maybe. But after you've seen enough destruction, it's hard to believe that some of them might want peace." Alara looked down, her fingers tracing a pattern on her sleeve. "I know it's hard to believe, Captain, but I have to try. If there's even a small chance for peace, I must take it. My people, the Zyranth, have lived in isolation for centuries. We've always believed in peace, yet we've kept ourselves apart. Maybe it's time we connect with others and work together." Her words caught Lucas off guard. He'd expected a royal who was out of touch. But here she was, admitting her people's mistakes and wanting to make things right. For the first time, he felt a strange connection with her. Despite their differences, they both wanted to protect the galaxy in their own way. Before he could respond, alarms blared in the cockpit. Lucas quickly checked the sensors. A Varick ship was approaching fast, its weapons aimed directly at them. "Hold on," he shouted, steering the ship into a defensive position. "We've got company." Alara's face stayed calm, but her hands gripped the seat tightly. Lucas launched the ship into evasive maneuvers, dodging blasts from the Varick ship. He could feel the tension rising, but he also sensed Alara's steady presence beside him. As he fought to keep them safe, Alara suddenly leaned forward. "Captain, if we can get close enough, I might be able to disable their weapons. My people's tech is designed to counter Varick systems." Lucas glanced at her, surprised. "You can do that?" She nodded. "If you trust me." He hesitated for only a second before nodding. "All right, let's do it." Lucas maneuvered the ship, bringing them dangerously close to the Varick vessel. Alara quickly tapped into the ship's control panel, her fingers moving fast. Seconds later, the Varick ship's weapons powered down, its systems frozen. Lucas let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Nice work, Alara," he said, impressed. She smiled, a little breathless. "Thank you. I told you. I'm here to help." In that moment, Lucas felt something shift. Alara wasn't just a passenger or a royal he had to protect. She was a partner, someone he could trust in the heat of battle. This mission, he realized, might not be what he'd expected, but with Alara by his side, it felt like anything was possible. As they drifted away from the disabled Varick ship, Lucas couldn't help but feel a growing respect, and maybe even a hint of admiration, for the alien princess sitting beside him. Friendship and secrets. Over the next few days, Lucas and Alara shared the quiet of space as they traveled together. With each passing moment, Lucas found himself letting down his guard, something he rarely did. Alara, with her calm nature and genuine curiosity, made it easy to talk. She wasn't just a princess on a mission. She was someone who listened and understood. One evening, as the ship cruised through a sea of distant stars, Lucas found Alara in the small observation deck, gazing out at the galaxy. He joined her, and they stood in silence for a while, simply watching the stars. "Did you always want to be a pilot, Lucas?" Alara asked softly, breaking the silence. Lucas chuckled. "Not at first. I grew up on a small planet, nothing special. But my parents were scientists. They taught me about the stars and all the mysteries they held. When they died in a Varick raid, I signed up with the Alliance, wanting revenge. Flying a ship was the only way I knew to protect others from the same pain." Alara looked at him with understanding. "I'm sorry, it must have been hard." Lucas shrugged. "It was. But that's how life is. We lose people, and we have to keep going." He glanced at her, curious. "What about you? Did you always want to be a princess?" She laughed softly, a sound that seemed strange and out of place in the quiet ship. "It's not exactly something you choose. I was raised to lead, to follow traditions, and to always put my people first. But sometimes, I wonder what it would be like to live a different life. To make my own choices without the weight of my title." Lucas could see a flicker of sadness in her eyes, a glimpse of the loneliness that came with being royalty. "So why take on this mission? You could have sent someone else." Alara sighed, her gaze distant. "Because I believe in peace, even if it seems impossible. My people, the Zyranth, have stayed hidden for too long, refusing to connect with others. But we need to be part of the galaxy. And maybe, just maybe, if I can show the Varick that we're willing to talk, they'll listen." Lucas nodded, feeling a newfound respect for her. "You're braver than most people I know." Alara smiled, but there was something deeper in her expression, something unspoken. "Thank you, Lucas, but bravery has a cost. There are secrets I carry, things I can't share even with my own people." Her words intrigued him, and he sensed a hidden pain in her voice. "You can trust me, Alara. Whatever secrets you have, they're safe with me." For a moment, she hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Maybe one day I will tell you everything. But for now, we both have our roles to play." Their eyes met, and Lucas felt a strange warmth, a sense of closeness he hadn't expected. Alara was more than just an ally. She was someone he understood, someone who carried burdens much like his own. In that quiet moment, a bond of friendship formed between them. A friendship laced with unspoken truths and secrets yet to be told. As the stars drifted by outside, Lucas realized that this mission had become more than just another job. He was now connected to Alara, not just as her protector, but as her friend, someone who shared her hopes and fears. And for the first time, he felt he wasn't alone in the vast emptiness of space. A shocking betrayal. After days of traveling together, Lucas and Alara finally reached the neutral space station known as Haven Point. It was a bustling hub where different species met to trade and talk. Lucas had heard stories about it, but he was cautious. He knew that danger could be anywhere, especially when the Varric were involved. As they docked, Lucas looked at Alara. "Stay close to me. We don't know who we can trust here." Alara nodded, her expression serious. "I understand. Let's keep our guard up." The station was alive with activity. Merchants shouted about their goods, and colorful aliens moved through the crowd. Lucas scanned the area, always alert. They made their way toward the main meeting room, where they were to meet with some potential allies. But as they walked, Alara paused, her eyes catching something in the crowd. "Lucas, over there," she whispered urgently, pointing to a cloaked figure. The figure seemed familiar, yet shadowy, slipping in and out of view. Before Lucas could react, the figure vanished into the crowd. "Who was that?" he asked, his heart racing. "I think it's someone from my past," Alara replied, her voice shaky. "Someone who might not have my best interests at heart." "Let's keep moving," Lucas urged. "We can't afford to get distracted." They hurried to the meeting room, but as they entered, Lucas's instincts screamed at him. The room was too quiet, the atmosphere tense. Several Zarenth officials waited for them, their expressions unreadable. Lucas felt a knot in his stomach. Something was off. "Princess Alara," Captain Hayes, one of the officials said, a tall Zarenth with sharp features. "We are glad you made it, but we must discuss some troubling news." Lucas exchanged a worried glance with Alara. "What kind of news?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "It seems there are reports of a plot against you," the official continued. "The Varric are not our only enemies. There are traitors among us, working to sabotage the peace talks." Before Alara could respond, the door burst open, and the cloaked figure from earlier entered. Lucas's heart sank. It was Commander Varric, a notorious figure known for his ruthless tactics and fierce loyalty to the Varric. He had once been a friend to Alara's family, but had turned against them. "Alara," Varric shouted, his voice booming. "You're a fool to think you can change anything. Your peace talks are a joke. You will never succeed." Lucas stepped forward, ready to defend Alara. "You won't intimidate her, Varric. We're not afraid of you." Varric sneered, revealing sharp teeth. "Oh, but you should be afraid. You don't know the real danger. There are those among you who want to see you fail." Suddenly, a loud alarm rang out, and the room filled with chaos. Lucas felt a sharp pain in his side as a blaster shot rang out, barely missing him. He turned to see a group of armed Varric soldiers storming in, guns drawn. "Get down," Lucas shouted, pulling Alara to the ground. The officials scattered, and chaos erupted. Varric soldiers fired wildly, and Lucas returned fire, trying to protect Alara. In the chaos, Alara spotted the Xyranth official who had greeted them earlier. He was reaching for his weapon. "He's one of them," she yelled. "He's working with Varric." Lucas felt his heart race. They had walked into a trap. Varric and traitors were everywhere. He pushed Alara behind him as they fought against their enemies, feeling the weight of betrayal heavy in the air. "Stay close," he shouted. "We need to get out of here." With enemies closing in, Lucas realized that their mission was not just about peace anymore. It was about survival. They had to escape and find out who they could really trust before it was too late. Dark secrets revealed. The blaring alarms echoed through Haven Point as Lucas and Alara dodged blaster fire, their hearts pounding with adrenaline. Varric soldiers were everywhere, and they needed to escape before they were overwhelmed. Lucas grabbed Alara's hand, leading her toward a side corridor, away from the chaos. "We have to find a way out," Lucas shouted over the noise. "Stick close." Alara nodded, her face pale but determined. "I can't believe this happened. We thought we were safe here." As they ran through the narrow corridor, Lucas could see fear in Alara's eyes, but he admired her courage. They stumbled into a small room, the door sliding shut behind them. The room was dimly lit, filled with crates and equipment. Lucas leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "We need to regroup and figure out our next move," he said, glancing at Alara. "But I have a feeling this betrayal goes deeper than we thought." Alara sat down on a crate, her expression troubled. "I've been thinking the same thing. My people have been acting strangely lately. There were whispers of a faction that doesn't believe in peace. They want to keep the Xyranth isolated, away from the other races." Lucas frowned. "And you think they're involved in this?" "I do," she replied, her voice trembling. "But I never thought anyone would go this far. I have a secret, Lucas, something I've kept hidden even from my own people." "What do you mean?" Lucas asked, his curiosity piqued. Alara took a deep breath, her eyes welling with emotion. "When I was younger, I discovered that some of my family members were involved in this faction. They believed that the Xyranth should remain powerful by keeping others at bay. They wanted to control the galaxy through fear, not peace." Lucas's heart sank. "Your own family. Fats." "I know." Alara interrupted, her voice strained. "I was too scared to confront them, afraid it would tear our family apart. So I kept quiet and tried to change things from within. But now I fear they have been plotting against me, especially after I declared my intention to speak to the Varric." Lucas stepped closer, sensing her pain. "You didn't do anything wrong, Alara. You believed in something better. But it puts you in danger, too," she said, her eyes wide with worry. "If they find out we escaped, they won't stop until we're captured or worse." "We can't let that happen," Lucas said firmly. "We'll find a way to expose them. You're not alone in this anymore. We can face it together." Alara looked at him, hope flickering in her eyes. "But how? If my family is behind this, they'll have resources and allies. We're just two people." "We have to reach the Galactic Alliance," Lucas said, feeling a surge of determination. "If we can show them the evidence of the betrayal, they will help us. We need to gather proof and reveal the truth." "But how can we get out of here?" Alara asked, glancing nervously at the door. "They will be looking for us." Lucas thought quickly. "We need a distraction. If we can create chaos, we might slip away unnoticed." Alara nodded, a spark of determination in her eyes. "I can access the station's systems. If I can cause a small explosion in the main docking bay, it will draw their attention." "Perfect," Lucas exclaimed. "Let's do it." They quickly moved to a control panel in the corner of the room. Alara typed furiously, her fingers dancing over the screen. Lucas kept watch at the door, ready to alert her if danger approached. With one final keystroke, Alara grinned. "Done. They'll be focused on the explosion. Let's move." As they opened the door and stepped into the hallway, the sounds of the station's alarms and chaos filled the air. With renewed determination, they raced toward their ship, knowing that the truth was out there and that together they could face whatever lay ahead. Secrets had been revealed, and now it was time to fight for the future they both believed in. A big risk. As Lucas and Alara dashed through the winding corridors of Haven Point, the noise of chaos filled the air around them. The sound of alarms and distant explosions made it clear that their distraction had worked, but it wouldn't last long. They had to hurry before the Varric and traders found them again. "Do you think we can reach our ship without being caught?" Alara asked, her voice tense as they turned a corner. Lucas nodded, but he felt his heart race. "We have to try. If we get to the ship, we can take off and find help." They arrived at the docking bay, the large doors looming ahead. Lucas stopped and peered through the small window. His stomach twisted when he saw Varric soldiers swarming around their ship. "This is going to be tougher than I thought," he muttered. Alara clenched her fists, frustration evident on her face. "We can't let them take our ship. It's our only way out of here." Lucas scanned the area, searching for an alternative route. "There has to be another way. Maybe we can sneak around." As they quietly moved along the edge of the docking bay, Alara suddenly stopped. "Wait, I just thought of something. My mother has a secret passage leading to the old maintenance tunnels. It connects to this docking bay." Lucas's eyes widened. "Then let's go. Lead the way." Alara led him to a nearby door that looked worn and forgotten. She pulled out a small device from her pocket, and with a few quick taps, the door clicked open. They slipped inside, the dim light illuminating the narrow passage. As they moved through the tunnel, Alara explained, "My mother always told me about this route. It was meant for emergencies, a way for the royal family to escape if necessary." Lucas felt a mix of relief and anxiety. "That's good to know, but we have to be quick. I doubt the Varric will give up easily." They hurried down the dark passage, the walls lined with old pipes and machinery. The air was damp and musty, but they pressed on, knowing they were running out of time. Finally, they reached a junction. Alara glanced at the small map on the wall. "We need to take a left. It should lead us right under the docking bay." They turned left, and Lucas's heart raced with anticipation. If they could reach the area beneath their ship, they might find a way to launch it without being seen. They continued through the tunnel, finally hearing the faint hum of machinery above them. "We're close," Lucas said, his voice barely above a whisper. As they neared the end of the tunnel, Alara stopped suddenly. "Wait, I hear voices." Lucas held his breath, straining to listen. He could make out the sound of Varric soldiers talking just above them. "They're planning to check all the ships," Alara whispered urgently. "If we're caught now, we'll have no chance." "We can't go back," Lucas said, feeling the weight of the situation. "We have to take the risk." Alara looked at him, fear and determination in her eyes. "What do you suggest? If we can create a distraction again, maybe we can get to the ship while they're occupied," Lucas proposed. Alara thought for a moment, and then nodded. "There are old tools in this maintenance area. If I can rig something to create noise, it might draw their attention away." "All right," Lucas said, feeling a sense of urgency. "Let's do it quickly." They rummaged through the clutter, Alara quickly piecing together a makeshift noisemaker. With a few final adjustments, she grinned. "This should do it." Lucas watched as she set the device down, the timer ticking away. "Let's move. We'll get to the ship while they check it out." Just as they turned to leave, the device went off with a loud bang, echoing through the tunnels. Lucas and Alara dashed toward the docking bay, hearts racing. With the sound of chaos behind them, they burst out of the maintenance tunnel and into the docking bay. But as they glanced up, they saw a squad of Varric soldiers already heading toward their ship. "This is it," Lucas shouted. "We have to get to the ship now." Together, they sprinted toward their vessel, ready to fight for their freedom. They both knew they were taking a big risk, but in that moment, nothing else mattered. They had come too far to turn back, and the fight for their future had just begun. The Alliance betrayal. Lucas and Alara raced toward their ship, adrenaline coursing through their veins. The noise of the makeshift device echoed in the distance, but the Varric soldiers were still closing in. With every step, Lucas could feel the weight of their mission pressing down on him. They had to escape, but they also needed to warn the Galactic Alliance about the betrayal they had uncovered. As they reached their ship, Lucas quickly punched in the access code. The door slid open, and they both jumped inside, slamming it shut behind them. Alara rushed to the control panel, fingers flying over the buttons. Lucas glanced outside, watching the Varric soldiers approach their ship. They wouldn't have long. "Prepare for takeoff," Lucas shouted, his heart racing. "I'm trying," Alara replied, her voice tense. "But the systems are locked. I need a moment." Lucas grabbed the blaster from his side and took a position by the door. "We don't have time for this. Hurry." Just as Alara was about to override the security, the ship shook violently as a loud bang echoed outside. The Varric soldiers had begun to fire at them. Lucas felt his heart drop. "Alara, we're running out of time." "I'm almost there," she shouted back, determination on her face. Finally, with a final beep, the ship's systems came online. "Got it," Alara exclaimed, and the engines roared to life. Lucas quickly pressed a button to lower the ramp, and they felt a rush of air as the door opened. "Let's go," Lucas shouted, firing at the approaching soldiers. His shots rang out, hitting one of the soldiers square in the chest. He turned back to Alara, who was quickly inputting the coordinates for their next jump. "Where to?" she asked, glancing nervously between him and the controls. "Anywhere but here. Head toward the Alliance base," Lucas shouted, his eyes darting around for more enemies. They needed to get out before the Varric reinforcements arrived. Alara nodded and set the course. Jumping now. With a surge of energy, the ship launched into hyperspace, leaving Haven Point far behind. They both let out a breath of relief, but Lucas knew the danger wasn't over yet. They had to inform the Alliance about the traitors within their ranks. As they traveled through the swirling stars, Alara turned to Lucas, her expression serious. "What if we can't trust the Alliance? If there are traitors among my people, what if the same is true for them?" Lucas frowned. "We have to take that chance. We need to warn them about what's happening. If we don't act now, more lives will be at risk." Alara looked conflicted. "You're right, but it's hard to know who we can trust. If we reveal the truth, it could change everything for my people." Before Lucas could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered. "What's happening?" he shouted, rushing to the control panel. "I don't know," Alara replied, her fingers moving rapidly. "We're being pulled out of hyperspace." The ship jolted as it exited hyperspace, and Lucas's heart sank. Before them stood the Galactic Alliance base, but it was surrounded by several Varric ships. "We walked right into a trap," he shouted. The realization hit them hard. "They knew we would come here." Alara's voice was filled with panic. "We've been betrayed." Suddenly, the comm system crackled to life. "Alara, you're under arrest." It was Commander Jax, the leader of the Alliance forces. "Surrender immediately." Lucas's anger flared. "They set us up. They knew we were coming." "Alara, we have to fight," Lucas said, determination in his voice. "We can't give up now. We need to find a way to escape." "Right," Alara shouted, her eyes fierce. She began firing up the ship's weapon systems. "Let's show them we're not going down without a fight." As the Varric ships began to close in, Lucas felt the heat of betrayal and fear wash over him. This was not just about them anymore. It was about the safety of the galaxy. They needed to expose the traitors and stop this madness. "Prepare for battle," he called out, ready to defend their ship with everything they had. They were about to face the greatest challenge yet, but together they would fight for their lives and the future of their people. The final battle. The tension in the cockpit was palpable as Lucas and Alara prepared for the fight of their lives. Outside, the dark shadows of the Varric ships loomed ominously, surrounding the Galactic Alliance base. Alara's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the weapon systems. "We can't let them take us," Lucas said, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding outside. "We need to break through their lines and warn the Alliance." Alara nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "I won't let them win. Let's show them what we've got." With a final flick of her wrist, Alara activated the ship's weapons. The ship's cannons whirred to life, and Lucas felt the adrenaline surge through him. "Here they come," he shouted as a squadron of Varric fighters darted toward them. The first blast rocked their ship, and alarms blared in response. Lucas gritted his teeth, gripping the controls. "Steady. We need to keep our focus." Alara took a deep breath and fired back, her aim true as she hit the nearest fighter. The explosion lit up the dark space like fireworks, and Lucas felt a rush of triumph. Nice shot. But they didn't have time to celebrate. More Varric ships were closing in, and their numbers were overwhelming. "We need to break through to the main base," Lucas urged, his heart racing. Alara nodded, her expression serious. "I'll create a diversion. You focus on flying us out of here." Before Lucas could argue, Alara hit a few buttons, and a series of decoy drones launched from the ship. They buzzed into the fray, drawing the attention of the Varric fighters. "Now," she shouted. Lucas steered the ship sharply, weaving through enemy fire. He felt the tension in his muscles as he maneuvered the ship with precision, narrowly avoiding blasts that could end their mission. Alara kept firing at the Varric ships, taking down 2 more with expert shots. "We're making progress," Lucas called, feeling a spark of hope. But the Varric commander was relentless. A larger flagship emerged from behind the other ships, its massive guns primed and ready. "We need to move fast," Alara warned. "That ship is here to finish us off." With one last surge of energy, Lucas pushed the ship forward, heading straight for the gap between the Varric lines. They soared through the chaos, dodging enemy fire and keeping their focus. "Almost there," Alara shouted, her fingers dancing over the controls as she continued to fire at their pursuers. But just as they reached the opening, a blinding flash erupted from the flagship. "Brace for impact," Lucas yelled, but it was too late. The ship shook violently as a blast hit them, sending them spiraling out of control. Alara gripped the console, her knuckles turning white. "Stabilizing now," she called out, trying to regain control. Lucas fought against the ship's wild movements, but it was a struggle. Finally, Alara managed to right the ship, but they were losing altitude fast. "We need to land now," Lucas shouted. "Hang on," Alara replied, focusing all her energy on finding a safe spot. Below them was a large open area, but it was surrounded by enemy ships. "I'll try to land us there." With a final surge of effort, Alara aimed the ship downwards, and Lucas held his breath as they approached the ground. The ship slammed down hard, but they were safe. The engines sputtered, and they had landed. "We made it," Lucas breathed, looking at Alara. But before they could celebrate, the door of their ship burst open. Varric soldiers flooded in, blasters aimed at them. Lucas reached for his weapon, but Alara pulled him back. "Wait," she shouted. "I have a plan." With a fierce determination, Alara stepped forward, raising her hands. "You don't have to do this. We can end this madness together. The Alliance is not your enemy." The soldiers hesitated, their eyes darting between each other. The tension in the air was thick, but Alara's words hummed there like a lifeline. Lucas watched, heart pounding, as Alara continued to speak. "Join us. We can expose the real threat, the traitors in our ranks. Together, we can fight for peace, not for war." The soldiers looked unsure, glancing at one another. In that moment, the tide of battle shifted. Lucas realized they had not just fought for their lives. They had fought for the chance to unite against a greater enemy. The soldiers lowered their weapons, and Lucas knew the fight was far from over. But for the first time, they had hope. Together, they would face the challenges ahead. The final battle had begun, and the fight for peace had only just started. Peace and new hope. The air was thick with tension as the Varric soldiers lowered their blasters, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Lucas and Alara stood in the middle of the open space, hearts pounding, hopeful yet cautious. "Join us," Alara urged, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Together, we can stop the real enemy, the traitors who want to keep us at war. We can work for peace." The soldiers exchanged glances, their resolve wavering. Lucas could see that some of them were conflicted. They were not just mindless warriors. They were people who had families and dreams like everyone else. The silence stretched on, and then one soldier stepped forward. He was tall and had a scar running down his cheek. "I believe in peace," he said quietly. "But how do we trust you?" Alara took a step closer, her eyes shining with sincerity. "Because we're fighting for the same thing. We all want a future where our families can live without fear. If we unite, we can confront the traitors together. We can protect our people." Lucas felt a surge of hope as more soldiers began to nod. The scared soldier looked around, and soon others began to lower their weapons as well. "We've been fighting the wrong battle," he said, turning to his comrades. "We need to change course." With a collective breath, the soldiers began to lower their weapons completely. Lucas exchanged a relieved glance with Alara, who smiled back, her determination shining through. They had taken the first step toward peace. "Now let's find the traitors," Lucas said, adrenaline still pumping through him. "They must be hiding somewhere in the base." The soldiers, now allies, nodded in agreement. They quickly formulated a plan, combining their strengths and knowledge. They split into teams, searching the base for the hidden traitors who had caused so much chaos. Alara worked closely with the Varric soldier, who introduced himself as Kieran. He was a strategist and had a good sense of the base's layout. Together, they led the charge, moving cautiously through the dimly lit corridors. "Do you think we can really bring peace?" Kieran asked, glancing at Alara. "I believe we can," she replied. "But it requires all of us to work together." As they searched, Lucas and another soldier named Tarek moved through the supply rooms. "We need to find evidence against the traitors," Tarek said. "Something to convince everyone that they are the real threat." In one of the rooms, they stumbled upon documents that detailed plans for sabotage and misinformation. "This is it," Lucas exclaimed, his eyes widening. "This proves everything." They gathered the evidence and quickly made their way back to Alara and Kieran. Together, they showed the documents to the rest of the group, who were gathering in the central area of the base. "Listen," Alara called out, her voice rising above the noise. "This is what they've been planning. They want to turn us against each other. We must unite and expose them." As the crowd of soldiers and former enemies looked over the documents, a sense of urgency filled the air. They all realized that their future depended on coming together. A few soldiers began to rally the others, calling for a joint meeting to discuss the next steps. Alara felt a swell of pride. They were no longer just enemies but allies, fighting for the same cause. After a short time, it became clear that they would confront the traitors. Alara, Lucas, Kieran, and Tarek led the charge, moving toward the heart of the base where the traitors were believed to be hiding. As they approached, they could hear angry voices echoing in the corridor. "They're coming for us," one traitor shouted, panic in his voice. Alara took a deep breath. "This is it. We must end this once and for all." With a nod, they burst into the room. The traitors looked shocked, and for a moment, time stood still. Then chaos erupted. But this time, they were ready. The combined forces of Lucas, Alara, Kieran, and the Varric soldiers overwhelmed the traitors. The fight was fierce but swift. In a matter of minutes, they had captured the instigators, and peace began to dawn over the base. As the dust settled, the soldiers gathered around Alara and Lucas, a sense of unity filling the air. "We did it," someone shouted, and cheers erupted. Alara looked at Lucas, her eyes shining with gratitude. "We fought for our future, and we won." With the traitors in custody, they began to work on rebuilding the trust that had been broken. Together, they discussed plans for peace and cooperation between the Xyranth and the Varric. Lucas felt a deep sense of hope. They had come so far, from enemies to allies, all for the dream of a peaceful galaxy. As they looked out into the stars, they knew that together, they could face any challenge that lay ahead. A new era was beginning, and with it came the promise of peace and hope for all.